Jim Driscoll, welcome to the Pre-Construction Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I was delighted when you reached out and told me you're a big supporter of the podcast. You get real value. Well, now it's your turn in the hot seat.
All right. Yeah, what is it? Long time listener, first time contributor.
I love it. And just before we came on, Jim revealed a little secret that he actually did a lot of theatre back in the day. So I'm looking for a top performance here today.
All right. Got to
Now,
project to the back of the room. That little old lady who always has bad hearing and somehow winds up in the last row of the auditorium every time. She just needs a better seat. That's really what it is.
and he saved your vocal cords. So give us
Yes.
a quick insight into it. What did you play? What did you enjoy most about the theater?
I liked that it was an escape from the technical world that I lived in, going through lots of math, lots of just other scholarly endeavors. I grew up in a house that did not have air conditioning in the Missouri Ozarks, so it gets really humid in the summer. And by doing theater, I could be at the theater where there was air conditioning, and I could escape that life there. That was my, I guess, early addiction to it.
I
But
love it.
the ability to be able to become someone else for a little while to me was
Yeah,
really cool.
yeah. And
So
fun,
that's what I love.
funny you said that it's about the mind, right? And it's about the brain. So right hand side of the brain, obviously very practical, logical, math, STEM oriented,
Mm-hmm.
and then you've got the creative side of the brain. But we get a lot of VPs, directors, senior people within pre-construction that have got that alter ego. So whether we've had a DJ on, we've had someone that plays the drums, guitar, a karaoke singer. An artist, someone who paints for a
Mm-hmm.
living, so I love the balance, and that's what you're trying to get the balance of the day to days of pre construction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, love it. Right, let's get started then. So what was the story growing up, Jim? Was it always construction? I know you went into civil engineering as a degree, but what was the thought process prior to getting into the degree?
I My parents had a nursery and landscaping business, and it was based at their house. They grew it around the house and the little mini farm that was there. So it, I guess, design, build, construction has, at least in some shape, form, or fashion, has always been a part of my life. My dad did the majority of his own design work. He'd go to people's houses or to places where he was asked to provide a proposal, and they would say, I have X. And they would look at their completely empty front lawn or look at the side of this building that had a big wall in front of it. We want to put something here that covers it. Or, and he come up with whatever that concept was. And sometimes there would be multiple concepts. And it, to me, the idea of looking at something that someone else put together and then putting it in was almost foreign. I couldn't fathom it while growing up, because we were part of the labor force. It was a family business, so you were expected to join in and help out. But that was the I guess earliest introduction. We were always building something. Where we lived was the middle of nowhere. If we wanted to build something, we built it. There were no codes, no inspections, no. So I learned how to do a little bit of everything there from just simply growing up. And I was told I was good at math. Um, you should be an engineer. You're good at math. You're good at science. And I've said several times, there are points in my career where I wish I would have misunderstood that and learned how to go drive a train and become that kind of engineer. But it has proven to be something that has really helped me drive a specific to a specific type of delivery model that still to so many people in construction is foreign. The engineering side of it is what ties me to pre-construction, is figuring it out. I knew a couple of people through church and through other areas of life who were engineers, and they kind of guided me into that path.
Jim, there's no way that you would have been bored senseless in a train or driving a train. You would have been, it wouldn't have lasted. It wouldn't have lasted. You would have ended up in
No.
construction no matter what.
Yep.
So why civil? I mean, obviously you've got the landscaping kind of background. Was civil just like a knock-on effect or advice from your father to go in that way? Or was it a case of engineering, civil, wasn't going to do mechanical, wasn't going to do electrical, didn't really understand much about the commercial ground up stuff?
It So I started out as civil because I grew up working outside. I wanted to be outside. That I guess if I get out once outside one day a month, I'm doing really really good now here in civil engineering. It kills me when kids at a career fair will say that I'm civil engineering because I want to get outside. Oh buddy, you got another thing coming. Understanding that what you are developing is your brain. What an employer is buying is your brain. And that, unfortunately, for a lot of these guys who did grow up outside and are getting into that career path, that means that your brain is going to be connected to a computer system and connected to the world of mind work, which we place in a computer now in most of these cases. Your outside technicians, a lot of those guys are still not coming from the degreed college engineering world. They're coming from a tech school and doing that work. But I started out as civil. I went and changed majors to be an aerospace engineer actually for a little while. I was always fascinated by the Wright brothers and the concept of flight. I had pursued at one point earlier in life to fly planes, and that didn't go as planned, but I was still fascinated by it.
No, no. I can see you being a pilot, Jim. Now that I look at you now, I can see you in a pilot's uniform with the peaked hat. That I could
Mm-hmm.
see.
Yep. That was something that I'd looked into at one point in time. So I was fascinated by it, and uh, went to aerospace. And I realized at that point I would never see outside as an aerospace major. So I did move back to civil, and it meant that I took dynamics, thermodynamics, several other classes that have absolutely nothing to do with civil engineering, and I guess stretched my brain and cost me a nice bit of extra tuition, and got me that much closer to, I guess, a master's degree or something if I'd ever looked to pursue it.
Brilliant. Love it.
That's what got me back to civil was I like these two things, and I have determined that this one is not for me, and I'm pretty darn good at this other one. So let's go back over here and let's finish that one.
Love it. Now, we usually asked how was the degree, but civil engineering is pretty straightforward. Now, let's go straight into it. DOT, straight in there, almost 2.5 years. Then you went to ARCO. What was the reason changing from Department of Transport over to the commercial construction world?
It's interesting because I'm a little bit reversed at this point now. I thought roads were pretty boring. They go in a straight line. That's what they do.
Say it louder for the people in the back.
I thought roads were boring.
Oh,
Um,
brilliant.
and I, at that point, also federal funding was disappearing from a lot of the transportation world. We were seeing a decline in spending. It was becoming significantly more about maintenance of the existing roads, and I worked on several maintenance projects. And I did not see in the course of my at least upcoming career significant projects, significant growth, significant innovation in that world. In the building portion or the private side, interest rates were coming down. We were approaching ZIRP, zero interest rate policy, and the amount of investment was coming out of the private side of the business was huge. The innovation, the way things were growing, going from smaller buildings to larger buildings, we were seeing things get bigger and bigger, newer growth in that arena. And heaven only knows the at that time the monster that we've created now with these million 5 million 6 square foot buildings, multi-story warehouses. It is certainly a monster that we have created.
Well, you were right. I mean, it was very like
Mm-hmm.
when you think about the age profile you would have been, you'd have been 24, 20, 23, 24 back then. I mean, do you be able to think like that and have a vision of what's coming down the line and make the change? Very mature, would you not say?
It it looking back on it, it seems that way. At that point in time, it felt a little bit more like a knee jerk. I could see it, but I couldn't. There's no way I could have articulated or explained it
Yeah,
anything
of
close to
course.
the way I put it here. It's
Yeah.
like I don't like this. I don't see a future in this that is a big deal, and I think I like this better. That's probably how I would have said it at that time.
I like
As
that.
embarrassingly simple as that was. I mean, now, however, it is fascinating what they're doing with some of the roadways. What the Missouri Department of Transportation is doing right now, adding the lane across I-70 and making Interstate 73 lanes all the way across the state. Some of the other projects that they have brought to integrate with that, the way they are opening that up to design build, the way the Missouri Department of Transportation has embraced design build, many other departments of transportation, it has generated a real rebirth in the transit side of it. And infrastructure and energy in general, I find fascinating. I would love to be able to touch on more of those in much bigger ways, hopefully in the future in my career, and be able to be involved in larger and larger projects there, because
Jim,
they're
I'm
becoming much more fascinating to me than I first thought.
It's too late, Jim. You said road building was boring. It's too late. You're not getting back in saying all those nice things about infrastructure now. It's too late. No, but
Mm-hmm.
let's leave infrastructure. I agree with what you said, by the way, but let's leave infrastructure straight into Arco Design Build. For anybody who doesn't know them, massive, massive warehouse company, do a lot of design build warehouses. Now, the thing that I really loved about your profile, and I mentioned it before we started recording, is you went from a director of operations into a director of pre-construction. That fascinates me. And I see the best operations people making the shift into pre-construction just because of the knowledge, the experience they have to be able to then bring that experience to the conceptual side, helping the designers, the subcontractors, the trade partners, and the owners. It's incredible. But am I right in saying that Arco, as a project manager, you go through the life cycle? Is that right?
Yes, yes.
Cool.
You are you. We used to say kill and eat. That rubs a few people the wrong way. So we now talk about eating your own cooking. That's the term I use now, because it also was me in college. I really liked to eat. I still had my country boy work on the farm, work in the landscaping business appetite,
Yes.
and I had barely two pennies to rub together. If I was going to eat well, I was going to have to make it. And when you have to eat your own cooking, you learn how to cook.
Yeah.
And that's what you were forced to do in a cradle to completion or concept to completion delivery model. The firm, Kadean, the guys I work for now do the same thing. The PM runs the whole job. You start it, you win it, you run it. If something is wrong, the only finger you can point is right back at yourself. And you get your butt kicked a few times, you start learning that lesson really, really quickly. So it allows someone to see all sides of the business, and you receive an opportunity to not make the same mistake multiple times, because you experience either the success or the failure of, ooh, I didn't do this right, I now know to do it right next time.
Yeah. And listen, being thrown in at the deep end on anything is the best way to learn. But I'm trying to think back. Arco took a bit of a risk. Civil engineer coming out from the Department of Transport, and giving you that opportunity. I mean, that must have been, and how important was it, the fact that they threw you in at the deep end, but not only the deep end, that you had to take the project from very early to handing the keys back to the client?
I mean, they did that with everybody.
Yeah.
It was not a here, we're going to let you try it this way, but we're not going to let that guy try it that way. It was guy or gal. It was very simply, hey, we have hired you. This is what you're going to do. Oh, okay, cool. I can do that. And I was told in college, we had a professor who had explained to us at one point in time, any of us who were going into construction as engineers, you're going to be at a disadvantage against the people who come from a construction management degree program for a contractor hiring you. You have taken far less education toward how contracts work. They're expecting you to do something differently. Because in a general, let's just go to subcontract, let's bid this, let's run this, contract administration side of the business, they learn so much more in their classes than you will ever learn in engineering school. So you have to find where it is different. And at that time, that was an extremely unique side of the business. Only a few companies were truly offering what was being offered from Argo at that time, both to clients and to people who were taking up part of that mission.
Brilliant. And contract administration aside, and the legal side of it, What did you
Mhm.
learn very early on at Arco? Because I mean, it must have been quite daunting going in there. And for people that maybe be listening, are a project engineer at a general contractor, or maybe thinking about moving into a general contractor, what were the lessons learned very early on? What were the parts of the role that you thought, you know what, I didn't realize that was like that, or that like that they did things like that.
Just simply, I guess I would say the level of ownership that was expected. And this is what I tell candidates at career fairs or candidates that we're interviewing now is, the ones who ask the question, what do you want me to bring? Or what do you expect me to bring? What skills do I need to have? And so, the things that I really want you to have are ownership, which is becoming increasingly difficult to find in our blame society. Instead of pointing the finger outward, I want you to own what you do. Right, wrong, indifferent, good, bad, own it. Because if you own it, you will see it through, you will benefit from it, you will grow from it. And the other one is the drive. You got to want it. If you don't want it, no amount of any other skill set is going to wind up helping. And I can't teach either one of those. No one can teach those to someone who's 24, 25 years old. You've either got it or you don't. And that level of ownership, it was me understanding and very quickly learning that this is not something where I'm sharing. It is truly mine to take and make.
Yeah.
And that's something that has, once I grasped it, has served me extremely well over the years.
Love it. That's interesting because I have a lot of clients now that do hire attitude now rather than skills. They're really
Mm-hmm.
looking outside the box. Obviously, with the massive lack of pre-construction and estimating talent out there right now, they're taking people, whether it be a project engineer, field engineer, or
Mm-hmm.
even people from different industries, and saying, you know
Mm-hmm.
what, you have the brain and the sponge will allow you to learn fairly quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And if I invest time in you, not only will you learn quickly, but you will pick it and you will run with it much, much better than other people. Is that your
My,
strategy?
I mean, my move into construction, when I started at ARCO, we had just a couple of months until the bottom fell out of the stock market and we hit the recession. I was out of school. I had negative net worth. I had a junker house that I had purchased that I had intended to fix up that was down in what was at that point in time a not so hot part of town. And um, I was one of the few who got out of my small town, so to speak. At that point in time, I think we'd had I graduated from a class of 29, and only a handful of us, I think I count on one hand the number of us who went to and graduated from college. Failure was not an option. I had to prove my value as I saw other people let go from the organization. I had to prove that I have value. If that meant that I'm staying here till 2 a.m. because no one else is willing to stay here till 2 a.m. to figure this out, it was going to get done. And it, to my detriment in certain other areas, but I did keep my job. I kept my house, and we've moved on since here. I kept my girlfriend, who's now my wife. Somehow, I don't know how I accomplished that through the whole thing, but she she was there and saw all of that. So
Brilliant. And that was 12 years, sorry, 13 and a half years
mm-hmm.
at Kadean. And then you moved on to Echelon. Now, you went from Kadean, from Arco, project manager, over to Echelon, and then ended up director of operations. How quickly and how different was it going from a project manager role to director of operations?
Anytime you're working and instructing people versus doing tasks yourself, it is, especially for those of us who refine and improve our doing skills, it is so hard to let go, to task and check and hold accountable. And I mean, I still struggle with that. I can't pull anybody's leg. I still struggle with that. The get the hell out of the way. I'm going to do X because it's clear you are not. Taking the opportunities to teach, finding the teachable moments, using them, planning for them. That's probably the biggest area where you wind up getting caught is the assumption that so and so knows to do X. Probably not the case. I mean, it has taken it's several months, if not a couple of years, to learn to understand multiple personalities with whom you are working. What is their skill set? What is their best form of communication? How do they represent that they know something or don't? Is this individual overconfident, underconfident, overskilled, underskilled? Do they shy away from the stuff that they're not good at, or do they just flat out hit it on and produce something that we then probably have to correct? That getting to know that about multiple people is a daunting task, while still at the same time trying to deliver the work as well. So
I always put it.
The toughest part of PM to director role for me was learning how to let go of the majority of the tasks that I was overseeing. And when you've got people who are reliable and do have that sense of ownership and drive, it is something you can do. If those are missing, I don't know how anyone can make that jump.
Brilliant. Look, I love the way you've summarized it there. And I always say to you, what did you enjoy more? Did you enjoy building buildings, or do you enjoy building people? And that's exactly what you're doing. And it's
Mm-hmm.
both are as complex as one another.
Buildings don't have feelings. People have feelings. And my wife, who is an HR, she is an HR director. She likes to poke fun at my non-existent or at least what she calls my non-existent feelings or soft skills. I tell her they're there. They are there. I am aware of, but I recognize when I also have to place a priority on saying this particular item we have to back burner for now and accomplish. She doesn't like when I do that with her. That is for sure. I get told when I mess up there.
I love it. But it's a really nice, because we get a lot of people on, obviously more on the pre-con and estimating side, and they ask the question, how do I go from senior estimator to director of pre-construction or VP of pre-construction? Because it's really difficult. And like you, estimators are generally right-hand side of the brain.
Mm-hmm.
People who that's the skills that they have, and not the best senior estimator isn't always the best director of estimating or director of pre-construction. But like any company, they generally have to feel like they have to promote that senior estimator who's brilliant and has got all the numbers in their head and can sit in front of a client and answer any questions. So that's very difficult.
It's they call it the Peter principle. You rise to your level of incompetence. I may be there. Well, I guess only time will tell. Or do I have another level before I wind up completely incompetent? We'll find out here soon. It's in your planning. You have to lead by example. So you have to prove that you can do, but you also have to task and check, and it takes a while. You have to learn how to do it, and the people you're working with have to learn what you're doing and how to respond and how to execute as well. That can become a two-way roadblock to finding success in making that leap. But that letting go, that tasking, that setting a schedule, developing a plan. The woman who taught my middle school English language arts, she a daughter of charity, one of the most intelligent people I have ever interacted with in my life. And she had this mantra, and I got so sick of hearing it: plan your work and work your plan. If I heard it once, I heard it 1,000 times during the course of my middle school. And it makes so much sense now. I get it. I understand it. I am grateful she drummed it into my head. It's how I operate. And the more I try to get that to people, what's your plan? Well, I'm gonna bid the job. That's not a plan. That's a goal. That's a result. I bid the job as a result. That's not a plan. Come on, let's make a plan.
I love it. And it's so simple, but yet so effective. And if everybody, and again, I always think that the action part of it is way more difficult. than the planning side. So because people love administrative work, they love planning it, but then actioning it is the difficult side. So making generally the action involves making difficult decisions and telling people bad news, telling people good news. That's the part that generally gets people fall over. So now thinking about that, right? Thinking about that, when you're with Echelon and you're director of operations, you're on the operations side. When Kadean said, we want you to come over as director of pre-construction, first of all, before you answer that question, as director of operations, when you looked at pre-construction, did you appreciate the work that they did? And what was your viewpoint?
When I went to Echelon, I actually originally was at that point seeking to do pre-construction.
Okay.
The Echelon role, I guess, really found me. I had worked for one of the owners in earlier part of my career there. There was a connection beyond them just finding me through a cold call there. So I was aware of their process, their delivery model. But I was looking for pre-construction at that point originally. So again, I'm an engineer. I think I work in. You had spoken with I forget her name at KCI. She talked about the dark art of reading plans. I mean, it's an even darker art to not even have a plan and just simply work entirely in your head. It's that meme with all the Pythagorean theorem and all the other stuff floating in the foreground. That's how my brain works when it comes to laying stuff out on a site. I look at a property and I see a building out there on it. I see grades. It's there in my head. And it's how do you get that onto paper or into someone else's head to get them to see the same thing and work through what's there. And that is the side of the business that I found myself enjoying the most. I get bored when you're just doing repetitive. I don't want to say just doing. It's not just doing. The guys who do it so incredibly well. Running those weekly coordination meetings and putting the job together. But just like the professor talked about the construction administration, the guys who will come out of school running circles around us engineers in a construction environment, they went to school to do construction management because they want to do construction management. Yeah. They want to run work. They like running work. Let them do it. I like figuring it out.
Yeah. You must be a dream for a developer or an architect or designer when you're able to sit with your head without even a napkin sketch and be able to talk them through the process of operations. And then obviously throw in your math skills with the costings as well. You've always been a director of pre-construction, but we're just seeing the best of you now.
It has always been the part of the business I believe I'm better at. Yes, that is for sure. No. And it's yes, to be able to get a plan that's just simply an aerial and say we want to do something here, that makes me go bingo. Let's do this.
Brilliant. So talk to me now, director of pre-construction. How you settling into the role? What's the future look like? How do you find building a team, managing people? What are you guys like delivering? Are you guys predominantly design build, CM at risk? What sort of collaborative environment is Kadean working in right now?
So the delivery model I am associated specifically with our design build pursuits. Okay. Kadean does we deliver things in multiple different ways. We do CM at risk. We do some general contractor work in town. I would say more in town than out of town. We do design build. We do fee and GC arrangements with certain healthcare providers that are long-standing relationships. The company's been around 60 years. It has done different types of work with some long-established clients over that course of the time, morphed and moved. And the design build delivery, we have an architect in-house and drafting team, and the creativity there matches my own to where we can sit down with something and the stuff that we'll put together winds up working.
Brilliant.
So it it is also a single point contact for the estimating, the development of documents, the contract administration, the closeout. The project manager and project engineer that would be assigned to the project handles the whole thing. So I don't have an estimating team that I'm directing. I don't have 12 pre-construction people. I'm advising the pre-construction process and working to develop each PM, each project engineer. I've gotten involved in our recruiting process and the development of how the intern experience goes when they're at Kadean. And I would say it's probably more frustrating to work with a multitude of project managers across a multitude of product types and a multitude of delivery models than it is to probably build my own team of pre-construction people where I can say, look, we're a silo. We don't talk to them over there. We do our thing over here. It's
because traditionally
I'm working with
that's the
each
way
one
it
of them
was,
differently.
Jim. Like
I'm sorry.
traditionally, that's the way it is. You've got your pre-construction department, you've got your operations department. There's a handoff halfway through. You hand them the project, you pat them on the back, and you say, "Don't be changing the subs," and that's how it works. So, Kadean, it sounds like it's quite an autonomous role that you're in right now, and it sounds as if you're enjoying it.
I'm having a good time learning how each individual person works. It's you see different people enjoy and find better results in different product types. And it's been 2 years. We're coming up on 2 years here, and I'm understanding who does what best.
Yes.
I can see this is going to be a great fit, or hang on a minute, this one's going to require whatever set of steps it requires. We're going to have to, reallocate here because that is not a strong suit. It's generally resisted. It's, this guy's good at X, not at Y. Let's make sure we have the right person tied in for what we're doing. So, and with the healthcare, the combination of the healthcare products and the industrial world, they're not a married group. It's not like they're cut from the same cloth, so to speak. They are two independent legs of niche and understanding. There's specialization in healthcare and hospital work that you'd never dream of finding in industrial and vice versa. And to run across that as a detailed doer of a project manager, that is asking a lot. That's taking a multifamily guy and tell him to run a 1 million square foot building or vice versa. The two to run across and cross pollinate is very, very difficult.
And how do you guys do that? Do you have project managers healthcare division and project managers industrial division, or do you guys swap in, swap out? And is it the same on the pre-con side, or are you just design, build, industrial?
I wind up getting involved with pretty much all of our design. If it is a design build project across any of the 3 offices, I wind up involved in some capacity somewhere. At least that's the way it has been going here so far. I guess workload and time will tell if it continues to be that, or how we'll grow from there. On some of the stuff that comes in design, a lot of the healthcare world still works in a design bid build arrangement. I hope it changes. I believe we can do some tremendous things for that particular niche, that particular product type, but it's just not in the cards in a robust way right now. We do have several guys who they know the rules, the regulations, the codes, like the back of their hand. And we want them to do what they do best. Yeah. So when it comes in and it is a job that is in a hospital wing or a renovation of something, we have a pretty good idea of who needs to be involved in that. Now, if it's an ambulatory surgery center, which we build quite a few of those, we have several more players who can step in and have experience with those. There are obviously the guys who have done more than the ones who have done less, but we have a much wider capacity to assist with developing someone who has less experience and grow their experience through one of those. than trying to go straight into an operational hospital and renovate something inside of it during all the odd off hours or some other extremely complex arrangement there.
Yeah, yeah. And you mentioned as well there that the design bid build. Do you think the design build model will ever get into healthcare? I mean, you're not the first contractor to say that they would prefer that in the healthcare system. Is it a case of the developers or the owners aren't listening, or are they just stuck in their ways when it comes to design bid build?
You have a lot of legacy programs and a lot of bylaws, rules, regulations of the corporation or some operational or other fiduciary requirement that has them say, our process requires X. Sometimes you see that moved aside by pushing it to a developer run program on an offsite parcel. We've seen a little bit of that. The third party sides of things, whether it be a doctor's pavilion or a medical office building that has a surgery center inside of it. Some of those are done privately as opposed to through the large healthcare provider. Those have been a little more innovative. And there is interest. The healthcare programs have interest. It's certainly there. How they implement it, how they deliver what they have to deliver internally to be able to satisfy the requirements of either their regulatory or other internal systems is something that I think all of them are trying to figure out, because everyone recognizes the amount of time that goes into a design bid build project to design it, the amount of cost that goes into design it. Just to have a GC come back and say, I can do it better. If you would have hired me before, I could have done this better. I could have done this faster. I could have done this for less. That's painful every time. And a lot of people in the industry do recognize that. And is it every time? No. Sometimes some of the stuff comes out and it flat out is the best it can be. Yeah. And, that's the setup. It's the option and the opportunity to engage that I think will grow in time.
Yeah. Yeah, love it. And listen, you said it, it's an ever evolving thing, and maybe there'll be, and it only takes one to make the change and to get that result. And it probably does mean go through in a couple of projects on design build to film to turn around and go, yeah, no, this is the best model. Now, tell me a couple of things.
I mean, the same with the highway department. You would have thought, public money going design build, you got to be kidding me. MoDOT does a phenomenal job with how they do it. These are your parameters. This is your budget. Go get it.
Yeah.
Here's best. Your scoring system. Yeah. Bring us a proposal. Let's see what you can do.
Yeah.
It is a fantastic process to engage design build.
Yeah. And you would see it as well in the other parts of your business. Like it is 80% of the rest of delivery on commercial construction. Like design build is getting so popular.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Some groups see it as a way to shed risk. Others see it as a way to speed things up. Others see it as just simply a way to have the single point contact. Some see all three. Others just simply, I need something built, so I call the construction company. Figure they can handle it for me. It's every last one of those. You wind up seeing people coming up with the reasons. So
yeah. Love it. Long may it continue. Now, something you touched on there during this so far is the interns and bringing interns on and getting a program together. One thing that fascinates me, right, is an LMS system, so learning management system of various documentation, videos, a proper program. Do you have that at Kadean, and how do you run your program? Is it a case of getting the interns across everything, across pre-con estimating, project management, BIM, VDC, safety?
So I'll split this up and answer the learning program. We have a program. We call it our KCEs, Kadean Continuing Education. I took over the facilitation of that program when I joined, and have transformed a little bit of how it's run. The delivery model is still somewhat similar. We record the presentation and it is archived and it is there as something that we can always reboot and use for education. But we do have people internally become the lecturer or become the expert on this process and present it. And we have internal checks to review what is being presented. I mean, there's actually one this afternoon.
Brilliant.
It's scheduled for this afternoon that we'll be having one. It's on PM 101, just returning to the very basics and going through this for those of you who are project engineers and want to be a PM. Let's look at what it is to be a PM in some of the most basic manners. Are you doing all this? And for those of you who have been doing it 20 years, you might want to go back and check the fundamentals. Let's visit this. So
Refresher. I like it. Yeah, yeah.
that's what's on today. As far as the intern, we're still a relatively small outfit in the grand scheme of things, and we don't have time to make an intern program. Nobody plays construction. Nobody plays house. You get your walk around the office. You fill out your paperwork. You meet a few people, and then you are assigned to a project manager. You are assigned to whatever their workload is. So you become an extension. You're their third arm. You're stitched to them. I tell the kids at the booth when we're at the career fair, if that PM is getting kudos for doing a good job on something, you're getting some of the kudos. If they're getting yelled at because they screwed something up, guess what? You're going to get yelled at too. It's how it works here. You are immersed in the delivery of construction work. You'll see it for better or for worse for what the job is, the job being the project, the company for who we are. We may be your fit, we may not, and vice versa. We'll see it with you as well over the course of that time. So it is the same throw in, sink, swim, learn it, love it, live, love, laugh, learn, love, and do, I guess.
It's a Jim Driscoll way. That's the way you did it. That's the way everybody does it. That's it. I love it. Very
It,
nice. Yeah, no,
it's proven more effective. And I mean, Kadean's tried a couple of other options with how to bring interns. Do we just have someone there and they're at everyone's disposal, or do we have them just tour around to job sites and do a little bit of shadowing here and a little bit here and a little bit here? And we've learned that the interns, at least the feedback we have gotten, is that the depth assignment and connection to a project, to seeing something through, is so much more valuable to them than being hopscotched around to get this tiny little fun taste of a little bit of all these different things that really you barely only get surface level connection to.
And you only get to see the good stuff. You don't get to see the late nights.
Right.
Yeah, and that's it. So if you do go away as an intern and go, you know what, I want to work in pre-construction or estimate, and then you go and you go, oof, this is not what I saw during that internship. That's it. Yeah, you almost need to do an internship, 3 or 4 internships, one on pre-construction, yes, one on PM, one on safety, and one as a superintendent. So
yes,
listen, if that's the way, that would be great. Listen, Jim, we could talk all day about this, but unfortunately, I do try and keep it to around 35 minutes, 45 minutes. So our time is up. But if there is anybody listening and they've said, you know what, Jim touched on a couple of things there that I want to dig a little bit deeper, and they were interested in reaching out to you, where's the best place to get you?
They can hit me up on LinkedIn. I am on there. You can find, I'm not sure if I'm on the company webpage. We just put up a new website for Kadean. I'm not sure if I'm on there or not, but the LinkedIn will definitely get to me. My notifications are off. So
good.
Sometimes I don't find messages for several days because it's not constantly pinging up there in my inbox, but that they can get me on there and we can talk.
Brilliant, Jim. And what I'll do, folks, for anybody listening, if you are interested, I will put a link to Jim's LinkedIn profile down below, and you can drop my message on there. Jim, it's been a pleasure. I can see a second episode coming up with all we've discussed. So thank you for the first one, and we look forward to the next one.
All righty. Thank you, Gareth.